Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Drunken Cryptids. I'm your host, Matthew Orton, and I want to give a special shout out real quick to Dylan over there at Blade Media. Thank you, Dylan, for the hard work you've done on the logo and the website, man. It's amazing. I appreciate it. If y'all want to have Dylan help y'all out, check out his website, blademedia.com, BLAYED.com. Y'all remember those commercials.com. Yeah, events coming up. I will tell you guys that I am going to be speaking at the Ohio Bigfoot Jamboree 2 this October 4th in Ada, Ohio, put on by the Cryptids of the Corn. My good friends, Justin and Jay, are doing another jamboree. So if you're in the area, check them out. Go to their website, cryptidsofthecorn.com, and get your tickets purchased. But I will be a speaker there in the family tent. I'm pretty excited about that. Thank you again, Justin and Jay. It means a lot to me. We're also going to be at the Arkansas Paranormal Expo this October as well. So make sure you come on down, check us out. We're going to be at the MacArthur Museum there in Little Rock. So the military museum there is wonderful. It's a great program. We'll have a booth set up. Come meet and greet. We'll have some merchandise and stuff there. Come say hi to us. Just pop in, say hi, and tell us, hey, a little bit about you. Looking forward to seeing you guys. Met some good fans last year, and looking forward to meeting you guys again this year. So appreciate it. However, I will tell you guys this. When it comes to the paranormal, there's a lot of TV shows. There's a lot of programs out there. There's a ton of information flowing, going back and forth. And it's hard to filter, what's real, what's not real, what's going on, and how to, differentiate between the two. And, the paranormal has always been a sweet spot for me in my life. I've had, I've lived in a couple haunted houses. I've seen some shadow people. I've had some kind of creepy paranormal encounters, doing some investigations and such. And, it's a really fascinating field, and my view on the paranormal changes a lot, as it does with, Bigfoot and some of the other cryptids. The reason why it changes because, more information I gain, more research that I do. So, tonight's guest is coming on is actually part of a really unique paranormal group and podcast show. A good friend of mine, JD, I met them. He was with the Chumming with the Spirits show. Him and his two buddies, Larry and OG Dave, they do a great job on their show, and they go out and they do a ton of paranormal investigating. JD actually served in the military in the U.S. Navy from 1993 to 97. He worked in the avionic electronics technician is what he was. He made it to petty officer class. Third class, excuse me. Sorry about that, JD. After that, he did go to the Air National Guard, where he worked in EOD. And now what makes it special, though, is that one, you cannot work in avionics. You cannot be an electronic, avionic guy, technician, or working into EOD without having, you got to pay attention to the detail. This is a situational awareness. This is where you're detail. EOD, which is explosive ordnance disposal. These are the guys that go in when we're overseas and we find an IED, improvised explosive device or some type of bomb for, civilians. They go in and defuse it. I mean, they work in law enforcement. They do a lot. So this is a very high strenuous, high attention to detail job. So JD's trained in all the ways on how to pay attention and to take notes and to be situational aware. Now, after his stint in the military, he did become a certified ASE mechanic. Okay. And so he works as a mechanic as a side hustle. He does that. So again, it's working how to work and put things together. Mechanics do not get enough credit for what they do. Mechanics are great. They take apart engines, they assemble them. They make those things run. I'm not a mechanic. I'm not mechanically inclined at all. So I tip my hat to every mechanic out there. Right? He's done a little bit of college time and everything, but he has been working in the industrial automation industry for the past 25 years. He's done everything from managing departments to being a lead programmer. He's built whole plant systems to small machines that open, industrial cans. He didn't start investigating until about 2017, and in the episode that we're going to get into, JD's going to talk about what brought him into it, what led him into it, some of his past encounters, and I'm not going to lie, it's a long episode, you guys, but me and JD have a great time. We have a great conversation. We do a lot of theorizing, and it was such a pleasure to meet him for the live show that I did with the Cryptids of the Corn crew. So, without further ado, sit back, relax. It's showtime.
Was these two globes. I don't know how to describe them. And I stood up there and looked at him, and it's like,
I just couldn't hold it anymore, and I was like, oh my gosh, I was a chupacabra. I was so excited.
They were referring to Bigfoot.
There are voices in the darkness.
the reason why this show is called Drunken Cryptids.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Drunken Cryptids. I've got a great guest coming on this evening, and I was lucky enough to meet him just a little over 2 weeks ago. Big fan of their show. He's a fellow podcaster. He's a paranormal investigator. He likes getting out there. He likes digging in, trying to find the truth. Kind of like, I don't know, I'm going to start calling him my fox, if you catch my drift on the X-Files, except for we're not looking for little green men. But no, it's a great honor. Like I said, we met at the live show with the Cryptids of Corn and hit it off. Had a great time with you guys that weekend. But come on the show, you guys, is JD from Chumming with the Spirits, and I love that name. It fits in so well with Drunken Cryptids.
It does.
And I'm actually wearing your shirt.
That is awesome. You guys have some. I love your guys' logo too. Made those business cards. I thought they turned out really nice for you guys.
They did. I still have them set up down here, and I realized on the last live show, Facebook Live, that me and Tommy did, the one card was upside down. And I was like, that's us. Because I got 3 of them right up front. But, man, what did well, thank you for the compliment on the logo. It was a buddy of mine's son. And me and this guy, we'd worked together for years at Schwann's. And then, we both went our separate ways from there. So, I mean, staying contact. But his son started a multimedia company. And when I was, starting the show and getting everything going, I knew I had this idea in my head. And I called him up because this is what he does. And I said, hey, I just started a podcast. What would you charge to make me a logo? And, let me tell you what I'm thinking about. And he said within 15 minutes of talking to me, he had it because of what I was trying to, incorporate into that. So, yeah, there's Bigfoot holding a beer in the mountains, and in the background is a little UFO.
Yeah, it looks amazing. Ours, Chumming with the Spirits, is a dual meaning. My co-host, one of my co-hosts, is Larry Parachum Buchanan. He got the nickname Parachum because he has a tendency, if there's something paranormal around, it's going to attack him. It's like chumming the waters. And then the chumming also, what the spirits came about is we were sitting around telling ghost stories and having a few spirits realize that, maybe we could actually film this or record it and do something with it. So that's the dual meaning of the chumming with the spirits. Speaking of spirits, I'm drinking Sazerac Rye.
Well, okay, now what is that?
So Sazerac Rye is a straight rye whiskey from Buffalo Trace. They're the ones that make it. It's a smooth, sweeter rye whiskey. Same people that made Eagle Rare that I dropped off for you.
Okay. Yeah, well, I'm having my traditional Yingling.
Yep.
As you learned when you came down here, that's my my spirit of choice.
That.
But I will tell you, I have a really good friend of mine, and he was on 2 of my episodes where we kind of did a little, an investigator's perspective, and we dug into some of the stuff, from his perspective as, for the many years of law enforcement. But he has decided he was going to retire. He came over to the tavern to hang out, and he told me, hey, I'm going to retire. And I said, you know what? I got the perfect drink for us. And he saw the bottle and goes, oh, that's really good. He got all excited. So we both had a drink, and, for his retirement with the lovely gift you left me when you were here. I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, it's Eagle Rare. It's from Buffalo Trace, which they got flooded 2 weeks. Well, that storm that came through Arkansas when we were down, it flooded them. So that may be a little rare bottle pretty soon. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so enjoy it with your friends. I mean, that's what it's really meant for. I don't believe in, I drink all my whiskeys. Some of them I'll keep around for special occasions, but generally they all get drunk.
Well, they're supposed to,
Yeah.
And then I ended up acquiring because I'm a big Jameson guy, and
Yeah.
I have been for a very long time. I like it just with some ice and stuff, but sometimes I'll put Sprite in there, just lighten it up a little bit. But so all my friends for years would give me bottles of Jameson and stuff like Christmas and my birthday. You know what I mean? So I think I have like 3 unopened bottles somewhere in my house of Jameson still. But I will tell you though, the whiskey though. So the last night in the tavern, because the tavern is moving. So the last night in the tavern at this location is the bottles we broke out, and then once the tavern gets reset up at the new location, is when that bottle's gonna be broke out, and that way y'all will be here in spirit with me as we close it and as we reopen it.
I appreciate that. That means a lot.
Well, I mean, it means a lot to me, to be honest with you. That's why I'm planning it. So like in the last episode, me and Chris were talking as we're digging into the LBL. We're gonna do a good little close out of the tavern, and I'm like, yep, I already got the drinks planned out. What I'm gonna do, I already have it set up. We're all gonna enjoy it, and then when we get over there, same thing. Smoke cigars and close it, and then smoke cigars and reopen it.
Reopen it.
Yep.
Yeah, that sounds a great plan. Yeah, let me know when you're reopening it. I know I know with you closing it down, I think my schedule's pretty tight during that time frame. But when you get everything set back up, I may have to make a little jaunt down and catch up with you.
Well, after it's set up, you need to make a jaunt down no matter what. You get a free weekend,
Yeah.
Come on down. I will tell you that I can take us on to some. I mean, I'm jumping ahead on the show already, but I because you guys do mainly a lot of paranormal, and I'll stick with the paranormal during the summer, and I don't mind going out to the woods in the morning, squatching in the morning during the summer. But as it gets, we start hitting June, July, August, even into September here, it's still pretty brutal unless you're further north, and it's. Yeah, and all I do is sweat. I mean, in the summertime, It's nothing but I just constantly sweat. And if I have to put pants on, I hate wearing pants, So I think you saw that as well. I was wearing shorts, and I was uncomfortable putting pants on for the live show. I was like, yeah, I'm wearing pants. Yay. But, so when you do come down, though, I got some locations for us to go do some paranormal investigations for you.
That sounds amazing.
And speaking of, let me catch you off real quick. But speaking of paranormal, though, let's talk about how you guys got started. So you started as a paranormal group, correct?
Yes. So the 3 of us, OG, me, and Parachum, were part of another group here in Kansas City. We had actually we'd done some investigations, and we had formed a new group called Parachum Productions. And we were trying to do documentaries. So we're in the Kansas City greater metro area. 2 of us are in Kansas. 1 of us is in Missouri. There is so much paranormal. We're like 45 minutes away from Atchison, Kansas, which has the Sally House, McClure Villa. There's a sleeper mortuary down in Iola. There's multiple buildings in Kansas City. Lansing is Leavenworth in Kansas is considered the first city. There's multiple buildings that have been here, pre-Civil War. There's a bunch of battlegrounds because there's a time frame in here called the Bloody Kansas. That's right before Kansas became a state, where Missourians were coming over. Lawrence, which is 12 miles from me, about half hour from Kansas City, they got burned down twice by Contrail raiders. There was a massacre that happened. So with all this paranormal in the area, and we're with Lawrence, also you have Stoll Cemetery, which is just outside of Lawrence, became pretty popular with the supernatural fans. So we decided we were going to try to do documentaries. The group that we were with had a TV show, was on a kind of like Ghost Hunters International, where they had multiple teams, and they had a private per pay channel that you could kind of watch it, and it never really went anywhere. So we were like, well, what if we did like true folk stories and worked on legends? There's up in Kirkville, Missouri, there's a Devil's Chair, which there's a backstory on that one, on the group. That was the beginning of the end. We were filming stuff, and wasn't going very well. we had some incidents. I'm gonna let Parachum tell you what happened on that particular, but it's coincidence that after some people sat in this chair that supposedly will kill you if you sit in it because it's the devil's chair, somebody had a quadruple bypass surgery, also had a cracked back, and another one of them had walking pneumonia, and then a month later, COVID kicked off. So I'm not saying we caused COVID, but we did not help it out. So, and then when COVID hit, everybody clammed up, and I get it, but no one knew what was going on. But trying to get in to do any investigations, trying to talk to people, trying to do interviews with masks on, we started realizing, we didn't know how long it was going to last. We sat down, and I like to drink. I like my whiskeys neat. Parachum likes about anything fruity. Dave is a little more picky on his drinks. OG. So we're sitting around, and we're basically talking about, well, where have we been? What have we done already? What have we done individually? And I wrote, we're telling ghost stories basically in the basement of OG's house, and I'm like, man, this would be kind of cool if we could just do this, record this, because like a lot of our experiences, they don't get captured on film. That's one of the things that a lot of people don't understand is like 90% of my experiences, none of it was captured on a recorder. It's only a personal experience. Some of them have somebody else that can corroborate it, but the odds of actually catching something is so minute. You end up with more stories than actual show, right? Which
Correct.
happens to kind of lead up to podcasting. I mean, we get to talk about what we've seen, what we experienced, what we think we saw, and you take it with a grain of salt. So with Parachum already having Parachum Productions, and the theory behind him is you put him in a haunted house, something's going to touch him. He is. We give him a hard time about stuff. He's a UFO guy. He is constantly saying, "Did you see that or did you hear that?" But honestly, we give him a hard time about it. But there's a lot of times we've gone back and have recordings. If he said he heard something, there's something there. Not all of it's paranormal, but he has a heightened sense of hearing and sometimes seeing that's picked up stuff. I think he has attachments, but we'll get into that in a couple minutes.
Yeah, we'll talk about. Yeah, I have some attachment stories. Let me, because speaking of Larry, when y'all were down here and he showed me the picture, and he was like, what do you think is in this picture? And you can see there's mannequins in the picture, and there was another entity or something in the picture as well. And I was like, dude, I need another picture of that. And and I talked to Chris about it as well, because Chris goes, oh man, they should have taken more pictures. I said, I know. So that right there sticks out to me when you were telling me all about that, how they're drawn to him, and he just has that knack of just being able to catch it. And you guys have talked about some of that on some of your episodes as well. So everybody, you need to go out there and and I'll post links in for your show at the show description. Everybody, so make sure you go check out Chumming the Spirits. They have an awesome shark logo, and I love sharks. So, all right, go ahead.
Yeah, that's where the chumming came from, was him. And then we're talking with we're having, because a lot of people. One of the things we try to do is to get people tell us their experiences and all that, and some not everybody opens up right away. So if you can get them talking and let them have a nice drink of something, whether it be water, tea, whiskey, we tell our stories. Generally, they will open up and then start talking about some of their stuff, because we get a lot of times we'll have some people and they'll, oh no, I don't have a paranormal experience. And then you start talking, and I'll explain what I had when I grew up or all this. And they're like, well, there's this one time. And that's usually where it starts off. And then, then they start remembering one or two other, like, well, I can't really say it's paranormal. This was, so that's where the chumming with the spirits really came into trying to get people more comfortable talking about these stories. Because it's, you see these people when they tell you their story, and they have somebody there that relates, that's not looking at them crazy or looking, questioning everything they say. I mean, you're always going to question something, but they feel, it lets them get it off their chest. You're talking, you're having a good time, and they get to tell you what they experienced. And that, to me, that's some of the neater things that we do. I mean, the investigations are always interesting. My background, like, so my dad's family, my grandmother always talked about stuff. It was always mentioned that, like, she was one of those old souls that had been around for forever. She talked about past family members, my great uncles, grandfather, great grandfather, coming by and visiting her, and she used to do this knack of, like, oh, your uncle's getting ready to call, back in the old days with landlines, and you're like, what? Then the phone rings, you walk over and you pick it up, and sure enough, it's my uncle. Hold on, grandma's fixing coffee. Give me, wait a second. And it was just those weird things, like, matter of fact, my current wife, when I first took her over while my grandma was still alive, I took her over to meet my grandmother, and we walked in, and, she was only like 5'3", typical 1960s grandma, and fussing about, do we have enough food, or, we have drinks and all that. And she was telling me, oh, so-and-so dropped by and, just checking in on me, making sure okay, grandpa's doing okay, this and that, and mentioned somebody else. And so I go, well, we just only had time for about a 30-minute drop by, but I wanted to make sure my grandma had met my soon-to-be wife. And we walk out, and my wife goes, I don't think you ever told me about your great uncle. I'm like, well, it's because he's passed away. She's like, what? I'm like, yeah. I go, people come by and check on her. She could be an episode on herself. All the stories I got from her, she had out-of-body experiences multiple times. She had died at least 3 times and had to be resuscitated due to medical procedures. She's one that really made the paranormal more normal for me, because I didn't really ever think it was that weird. And then, I mean, she used to make me and I have a 4-year-old, my sister's 4 years older than me, and growing up, we'd go summer vacations with my grandparents, and, like, I've been in almost every major cavern and cave system in the Midwest, from Tennessee to Arizona, because it got to the point where she couldn't go into the cave, so we had to go in there and look them up and describe it. So I have very fond memories of my grandmother in the paranormal realm. And then when I'm trying to think how old I was, we moved into this house in Independence, Kansas. It was built in 1912. It's an old Victorian style house. Beautiful banister, 2-story, has a mud landing with a bench and stained glass window, and it goes up. There's a halfway landing, and then goes all the way up to the second floor. And my first time I realized that there's things other than us is I was born in 1973. I'm one of the latchkey kids. I mean, you're in that generation.
Yeah, I got to be honest. I miss that. I do miss those times, and I wish my kids could grow up in that.
Yeah, it was a lot. I don't know if it was safer or I don't know. It just a different time.
Well, what's funny is if you look back to all the kidnappings that were going on in the early '80s.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's funny is that we were talking about being kids. It was we had gone to the baseball fields, and I was wearing a Return of the Jedi shirt. So I'm a Star Wars nerd still. And
yes.
it was a baseball style shirt. It was a white shirt, it had blue sleeves, and it had a scout trooper on a speeder bike on the front, and on the sleeves in white it said Return of the Jedi. And we had the cops pull up on us, and the one cop was asking me a ton of questions, and I fit the description of a missing kid, wearing the same kind of outfit and stuff. But we always just, I don't know, different. Yeah, just kind of like, oh, wow, that poor kid kind of, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I mean, you went out till the street lights came on, then you went home.
Yeah.
There was no cell phones. There's no trying to get hold of your parents. Like, if they weren't at work and they weren't at home, you're just done at that point.
Pretty much. Yep. Call grandma.
So yeah, so me and my sister are home after school, and I'm down in the living room, and the bottom of this Victorian house was set up in four squares. You had the entryway with the stairway, then you had a parlor room, you had a living room and a dining room, and then in the back was the kitchen. It even had servant staircase in the back to go up and down from a servant bedroom. So I'm watching TV, what was that, afternoon cartoons after school. My sister's upstairs, and I hear her start coming down the stairs. And I'm probably 7 or 8. And one of the things I like to do is, scare the bejeebus out of my older sister. It's what a younger brother does, right?
Right.
So I hear her coming down the stairs. So I hop off the couch. I have my socks on, so I'm quiet. I slide through the dining room, hug up against the banister wall, and I hear her coming down the steps. So I duck underneath so she can't see me, and I hear her land on the mud landing where the bench is, and I jump out and go, ha! And there is nobody there. I'm like, my brain didn't even comprehend. I'm like, there's nothing there. I know I heard her walking. I ran upstairs and opened her door because her door was the first one when you came upstairs. That's her bedroom. I opened it up. I'm like, did you just come down the stairs? She's like, no, I've been listening to music. What are you talking about? And that's when my brain went, that there was nothing there. I clear as day heard footsteps coming down and hit the landing, and I jumped out to scare him, and there was nobody there. And that's when my brain realized, okay, maybe there's more than just stories about this stuff. The other thing in the house that would happen, and none of this was creepy. I mean, it was creepy, right? Being a kid, but it wasn't. I never felt like malice. I just felt more, oh, that's really weird. I used to have my door open in the middle of the night. Like these are those 8-foot oak double paned skeleton key style doorknobs, and in the middle of the night I'd be sleeping and I'd hear the door click, and that would wake me up after a couple different times. It still wakes me up having a door open on me. The door would click, swing open about a foot. I could see the light underneath the door because the doors had big gaps to let the airflow go through, because we had the big ceiling fans or attic fans to help air, because air conditioning, trying to do that big house, only certain rooms had air conditioning.
Yeah,
they
have the attic fan here at this house.
Yeah. So the door would open up, and this even happened when the attic fan was on. The attic fan was strong enough it was right in the hallway. The attic fan had enough draw that it would pull the drapes off the windows. My bed was right in front of one of my windows. If I took my sheet, I could flip it up, and the airflow would make a tent out of my sheet. That's how much air pull this had. So even when this attic fan was going on, you'd hear the door click. It would swing open about a foot. You could look underneath the door, and there wouldn't be a shadow, meaning there's not somebody there. And it'd stay open for 2 to 3 seconds, like somebody was checking on me, and then it'd just close. Not slam, just close, click. And that happened countless times. I can't tell you how many times that happened. Me and my sister hearing people, like we'd be down in the living room hearing people on the steps, coming down the steps, and you're just waiting for somebody to come around the corner and they're not there. Of course, my dad was like, oh, it's just an old house. It's just a house settling and all that. So that was my realm into growing up into that house. We had another house. We moved out of that one, went to a more modern house, but it was on Elm Street, and it was the main gate to the cemetery in Independence, Kansas. And that's right when Nightmare on Elm Street came out. So talk about over paranoid after watching that, which I should not have been watching that as like a 8 or 9 year old. But
yeah, my first Nightmare on Elm Street movie was number 3, and I had gone to my friend's house to watch it because my parents wouldn't let me watch this, those kind of shows. And I was 6th grade, I think. Yeah, I was about 6th grade when I watched it. So I was about 11, and yeah, it was Yeah, loved it.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. Didn't for me. I did watch The Thing at a younger age,
Right.
and I begged and pleaded to be able to watch it, and they wouldn't let me. And I had snuck and watched it behind the couch. And that was the only movie that gave me nightmares as a kid. The only movie I ever seen. And I actually thought, because you remember when the dog
Yep.
flowers open and stuff like that. I thought it was coming out of my closet, and it freaked me out. And yeah, and I was like, "Yep, all right." And to this day, that's still one of my all-time favorite horror movies. If I see it on somewhere, I have to stop and start watching it.
So that's pretty much my background in paranormal. The other house we moved into, it I never had any doors or anything open, but there was one room that you go into, and every once in a while, it give you a feeling of just being busy, and like like you're thinking of numbers or just just like you're trying your brain. To me, it felt like you're trying to multitask like a whole bunch of stuff. And we later looked into it in the house at one point in time. That room was an office for an accountant. So that may have been just residual of that. I had some experiences also. My mother passed away fairly young when I was about 5 or 6 from breast cancer.
I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, I mean that was the 80s. Technologies came a long, long way.
Yeah, my mom is proof of that. She just finished the battle with it herself. And by the time this episode airs, I mean, she'll be able to move her arms again. She'll have a double mastectomy done. But as of this recording, she has one more appointment in a week from today to be cleared up. Talina's mother unfortunately passed away in 2019 due to breast cancer. They'd gotten rid of it at one point, and it unfortunately came back full force, and they wasn't able to do anything for it.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's what happened to my mom. She went into remission and all that. And
well, then I need to get a pink shirt for you from the Drunkencryptids.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah. So if you remember the show, the girls were wearing the pink shirts.
Yep.
So, yep. Yeah, you have to text me your mom's name after the show.
Okay, I can do that.
All right.
But that's one of the weird things. Like me and OG, he had his mom pass away when he was fairly young. He's the youngest. I was the youngest in the family. Have some similarities. He saw some stuff in his house, more full body apparitions, but he'll get into that story with you at some point. So fast forward, I did. I went through high school. Got my high school sweetheart pregnant. Joined the military to make sure I had income. Did the military life, did the United States Navy, avionics, electronic technician.
Go Army. Go ahead, sorry.
I almost went Army. My dad told me, because he is ex-Army from Vietnam area, and he told me I could go Coast Guard, Navy, or Air Force. He would beat me to death if I went Marines or Army. He goes, "You have a brain, use it."
Well, so the funny part on that one is, similar story. I was dating my high school sweetheart, did not get pregnant at this time. And my real dad had taken over my grandpa's construction company there in Utah. And he had talked about taking his shares of the business and because we had 2 ranches. We had one in Plain City and we had one in Spanish Fork. And he was wanting to take his shares of the equipment and everything and go down to Spanish Fork and start, Orton and Son or something, Gary and Son or something along those lines. And, obviously me being Son. And I was all excited about this stuff and had it all planned out. And at the time, Gary was, my real dad was kind of flaky about a couple of certain things. And I'm sure my sisters will listen to the episode, but that's okay. I still love you guys. But no, I remember I'm telling him, "Hey, I'm all set up. I'm ready to go. You said you're going to do this in about a week from now." And I was over there visiting with him and my stepmom and my little sisters. And he's like, "Oh, I changed my mind." I was like, "Oh, dude, I just set everything up." And I was coaching Little League at the time. So in Utah, you have to be 19 to buy tobacco. And this is back in 93. You had to be 19 to buy tobacco, but you could be 18 to smoke, which didn't make any sense, right?
Yeah.
So I had um my buddy worked at the grocery store there, Albertsons, and I was gonna go and have him sell me cigarettes. And got then coach. We had a practice for Little League, and I went over there. And instead of walking to the grocery store, I walked in the Army Recruiting Center and said, "Hey, I want airborne infantry, and I don't want no BS." And then I got married to my high school sweetheart, and then we got pregnant. But when I said I joined the Army, though, when I said I was going, I was going to be infantry, my stepdad, who was served during Vietnam, he worked during the. He was in San Diego, and that's when the bodies were coming across. So his job for the Air Force was to help catalog the bodies. And so when I told him I was joining the infantry, he just, his heart sunk.
Yeah. So my dad really didn't talk about. He's still around. He really didn't talk about it much until after. So I did the Navy. And I did electronics, avionics, electronics. So basically, I did component level repair on F-16s, heads-up displays, weapon systems. I'm trying to think of all the stuff. Just component level repairs. They bring the boxes off the plane. Another shop would tear the boxes apart, send the cards that they thought were bad to me, and then I had to troubleshoot them down to the component, replace them, and then test it, and then send it back. And then when I got out of the Navy, I decided the Navy wasn't for me. Tried to do some odd jobs, worked at a credit union and some other stuff, and realized I was in Jacksonville, Florida, which I didn't realize at the time. For the Navy, there's 3 naval bases, and Florida does not have a state income tax, so like half of the Navy retires in Jacksonville. Like when you get ready to retire, you try to get your last deployment to Jacksonville on one of the bases, and then you can just retire for free, and you don't pay any state income tax. So when I got out, I'm looking at jobs this is in '97. Like you go find a job that did some minor electronics for it'd be $12 an hour, and they want somebody with 15 to 20 years experience. It's like I got 4. It was nuts. So I ended up going back in. I almost went back into the Army, Army National Guard, but they wanted to demote me. I ended up going into the Air National Guard. They kept I was a petty officer in the Navy, 3rd class, so they kept me as a non-commissioned officer in the Air Force, which was technically a buck sergeant, which
E5.
E4, buck
E4. Oh,
sergeant.
really?
Yeah, so they don't have that class anymore. So what was weird was they were phasing it out while I was going through. So it's kind of like the corporal and specialist. So you have a non-commissioned.
So we had the specialist, which was enlisted, and then you could earn corporal. I mean, you were technically an NCO, but you hadn't gone to the schools, but you weren't a sergeant.
Yeah.
So that they gotten away from when I was in. 93 to 04. And I used to laugh and go, thank God I never became a corporal, because we just looked at corporals as, well, they're short of NCOs, and it takes forever to get promoted to a point because you got to go to school, you have to do, a month-long school, blah, blah, go to the board and everything. So it was easier just to, grab a couple of specialists and go, okay, you're now a corporal. So you can pull staff duty, and you can be, what I mean? Well, not staff duty, you pull CQ, and you can pull some, other, menial details of what NCOs would do. And yeah, it was one thing I was kind of glad. And if anybody got corporal, I'm not bashing you, dude. I promise, I'm not. But I got promoted to sergeant at 21, so E5, and I was ecstatic about that.
Yeah, no, that's the so the Navy they said, screw it, we're doing all E4s, because everybody's got to do duty anyways when you're on a ship. There's even on their bases, so they didn't do that dual split. But so when I went in the Air National Guard, they split it, and I finally when I got out, I was a senior airman is what they called it. But I did EOD training, explosive ordnance disposal. Interesting. You and me will have conversations about some of the training on that, because you've done practical. I had to do all the the testing and training for biological and chemical IED, all that fun stuff, and
Good
do well,
times.
yeah, doing demos and going walking live rounds, marking it for FOD. Anyways, so
Yep.
I do that, and I come back and talk to my dad, which my dad never really told me much about what he did in Vietnam. And when I come back and I start telling him, and he's like, "Oh," he goes, "Well, you know." He goes, I used to have to fly. So he was a radio man in the Army. So he did electronics in the Army for Huey helicopters. His job was he had to repair the radios and all that. But when a Huey or an aircraft went down near his base, he was the guy that one of five people that would have to load up on a Huey, fly out, drop down, rip all the radios out because of the encryptions on them, get back on the helicopter, and then get out of there before they start taking fire. Which he has all sorts of stuff that wasn't until, like I said, after I did in the military and had some experience that he even opened up and started talking to me about. So that was kind of interesting talking to him. And I think it just I bring it up because it's like talking about paranormal.
I was just about
If
to
you
bring that up. It is very similar to that. Is someone that has had a paranormal encounter or a cryptid encounter, like we were talking about at the beginning of the show. There's a lot of people that are real hesitant to open up, and they really don't know exactly what they did or did not see or encounter, and so they're going to question it and ask themselves over and over again. But whenever they hear like you or myself, or Larry, or some jump in and talk about, yeah, well, I was a kid and we lived in this haunted house, and my little sister's pillow was beating her in the head. They're like, well, like you said too, it just takes that little bit for them to understand that there's a kindred spirit there.
yeah
And when I meet with other vets, it's really funny because when I was going out a lot, years ago, when I would encounter another veteran, they always seem to be relieved and they would love to open up. And that's what helped me want to do the podcast, because I can relate, to that initial fear, like living in the haunted house and having that fear. And, you hear in the stairs, and, there's a fear to that. There is,
yeah
it will scare you. And I loved my neighbors cutting his grass.
Oh, nice. At least it smells good.
So yeah, I'm trying to work the
Yeah.
microphone volume to make sure that it don't pick up the lawnmower. But
But it's trauma bonding,
yep.
one way or the other. Actually, one of my favorite stories that I got told, uh, we were doing a live show. We went up to Elkhorn, Michigan, which is right next to the Beast of the Bray Road incident. And we're up there, and we were doing a live show, and a brewery up there. I'm gonna have to look that name up. But anyways, we're in there, and we went in there first to scout it, because they said we could. We got there a day early. We went in there, kind of checked everything out. The brewery is in this old farmhouse, farm that used to be a dairy farm, over 100 and some years old. Some of the most amazing beers I've had. They had pretzels and all that. But so we get in there, we're drinking, and there's a bartender, and then there's the supervisor for the night, or the manager, I guess is what you'd call him. And we asked them about the Beast Bray Road, and they're like, don't really know. They're local, but they really didn't know much about it. They didn't have any experience with it. And I was like, oh, well, okay, what about paranormal? Anything weird? None of them. Other than like, no, not really. And the manager was an Iraq veteran. He'd done at least 1 to 2 tours over there, and we're talking. I told him, thank you for your service, Army, of course. And it was just the 3 of us and them 2. No one else was in. And I think this was even a Friday night. Like they had said, it was pretty slow, even for a Friday night. So we start talking about stuff, and I tell the story about the footsteps on the stairs, and he's like, huh. He goes, well, it was kind of weird. There's this one time, And he goes, well, it wasn't one time. He goes, there was this post that we had to go pull guard duty at. He goes, it was the only one. He goes, it was upstairs in this building. He says, generally there'd be 3 to 4 of us have to pull watch. He goes, and if you got that many people, you just let the other people sleep. One person stays awake, right? You just wake everybody up because you could hear people walk up the stairs. And he goes, more than once, he goes, you'd hear somebody come walking up the steps. And then you'd wake everybody up and you'd be sitting there waiting for the door open, and the door would never open. He says that happened, and it's always at night when they're pulling, the balls shift. I don't know what you guys called it. It's the midnight graveyard shift watch.
Same, yeah, great, yeah, overnight. We just call it overnight.
Yeah, overnight. And he's talking about. He says he had it happen like probably 2 or 3 other times. He heard footsteps coming up, and then nothing would happen. He goes, this time he was near the door and heard the footsteps coming up. He goes, and I was right there. Everybody was already awake, and I swung the door open, and he goes, there was nobody there. I go, because I had just told him about the footsteps and me jumping out trying to scare my sister. I go, you think that one could have been paranormal, maybe? Because now you mentioned it, yeah, it might have been kind of. And we'd start talking more, but like he when I told my story and we're talking about stuff, he opened up and relaxed and was able, he goes, you know what? Yeah, I have heard footsteps on, and a lot of people will have these encounters and they just put it off in the back of their mind. Oh, it's just the building settling, except that it happens, at 3 a.m. every single, like every other night type thing. But that was one of my favorites, is to have another, veteran, who was like, oh no, I haven't seen anything, nothing paranormal, and then be sitting there and having a conversation and them opening up and telling you, you know what, I did have something weird. I don't know if it's paranormal. That's what you're saying. I don't know if it's paranormal or not. Like, well, now that you think about it, you think it could have been? He goes, yeah. He goes, that was the only place to do it. He goes, we'd have to pull guard other places. He says, that one building was the only one that would do that. I was like, oh, it's hard to say. That I always enjoyed that.
And you're right. When I was getting the show started last year, I was a member of the Elks Lodge here, and everybody down was like, "Oh, all right, cool. You're doing a show about Bigfoot and blah 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 blah." And everybody talks about the Elks Lodge is haunted, and me and we got a really cool EVP there. Me and Jacob did, but it would be funny because everybody's kind of like, "Oh yeah, Bigfoot, da 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 da," and then everybody kind of wander off, and there'll always be one guy every time. It'd always be somebody different too, like, hey, can I talk to you for a minute? Like, yes, you can, and would tell me a short, small encounter. And the irony part is, so the house that we're moving into, the owner was there with our realtor, and I go on the show. He does a show 5 days a week, and I go on every other week. But he our realtor and stuff, and for some reason Bigfoot got brought into it, and I wasn't there. And he started like, oh, so Matthew does look Bigfoot and everything, and Talene and him were like, yeah. And he was like, oh, well, I had an encounter. And I was like, oh. So they're both like, oh, you need to get a hold of Matthew and go on the show and talk to him about it. And so, yeah, it's really neat. And then one of the best episodes, that the most views that I had, is the episode called Wanna-Mint, and that is Dylan's dad, and he doesn't believe in this stuff. He's not about it. He, and so when he knew about the show, and he was proud that his son was doing the logo for me, and we were all talking on the phone, and he started going, well, some weird things actually have kind of happened here at this house. And 20 minutes later, I was like, okay, we're going to talk about this, and scheduled up, and we did an hour-and-a-half interview, and that's one of the locations I'm going to take you, because the activity is ramping up to where toys are turning on by themselves.
I gotta make sure to get you some equipment so you can borrow, so you can do more fun stuff like that.
Well, I'm going to take you there. So as of right now, they've sent me some videos of the toys turning on. His little girl's toys, have been turning on, and all by themselves, to where, Dylan is telling me that the activity that he's been experiencing on his episode has ramped up, and we're trying to get on the same schedule to do a part 2 because it's going off the rails apparently. And he's like, so when are you going to come up here and check this out? And I'm like, soon. I got a lot on my plate right now, but I'm coming soon. I promise. And now that I've got like this really cool, paranormal group that's wanting to jump in with me, I'm like, hopefully with a really cool equipment, So
Yep. We're here to support you, man.
I appreciate it. We're here to support you. So let's talk about what's the scariest encounter in your investigations you've had.
So the one I talk about, I've not, most of the stuff has not been, how do I put it, malicious intent. Like, I mean, yeah, kind of creepy, or you see something move, you get a little spooked, but nothing ever really scared me, except I had one experience in a small town, of all things, in a church. And it was a modern church. It probably built in the 80s. There was something there that it's the first time, well, the only time that I can recall that I walked in there, and in my head, it spoke to me, said, "Get out." And it was the first time, and I'm trying to think, I was out of the Navy, I'm 6 foot, 225, worked out all the time. I don't have a fight or flight. I have a fight reflex back then.
You're still a big dude, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not meaning that like a fat guy either.
No.
I'm talking like you're still a big dude. You're still a big guy.
Yeah, well, I hang out, and I'm the small one in my group. I love meeting Tommy and you guys, and Tommy's grinning because he looked like normal next to all of us. And Tommy's a big dude too.
Tommy is a big dude.
Yeah. I hear that, and it was one of the first times in my life that I did not have a fight or flight reaction. My brain said, "Get out, go." Not even, because I've been in other situations, and you flare up, your ego takes over, or training, whatever you want to call it. That's the first time that I've ever had something that in my brain told me I need, get out, and it did not feel human. When you feel somebody watching you, I literally left. Didn't even take a split second. Heard it, and I was walking out the door like, nope. My body was already going. I was like, that's the only time I've ever been into a situation. I have some theories on that, what it might have been. I wonder if it's not. So I believe in non-human entities. You can name them a whole bunch of stuff, but something that hasn't been human, been around for thousands of years. I wonder if this entity, because somebody else had mentioned they had a very similar experience in the area, because it's located in the back corner of this church. It doesn't happen all the time, but it's like you catch it the right time of day, or whatever's there just tells you, get out. And I wonder if they didn't accidentally catch something by consecrating the ground and caught something there that, is now just stuck, can't get out because it's in a church type thing.
It's a possibility. Yeah, I like that theory.
Because that's the only thing I could come up with. Like I said, it did not feel human, did not, like I said, it didn't even trigger a fight. It was all flight. I was just like already moving before I even thought. That's the only time I've ever, I didn't get scratched, I didn't get poked. It literally told me to get out, and in my head it wasn't audible. But I turned and was walking before I even realized what was going on. I was like, time to get out. Other than that, I've had, we're getting ready to do a Paracon next weekend at Ellenwood, Kansas. It's Central Kansas Paracon. It's going to be a fundraiser for the historical.
What's the dates on that
there.
one?
That is April 26th is the day they're doing it.
Okay, yeah, your episode is going to drop on the 28th of April.
Okay.
So it'll be after that.
So this will be after, but I've had disembodied voices there. Being a whistle, and me and Parachum went through some that was filmed for that original investigation group I used to work with. They've disbanded and reformed a new group, but they're going to release that footage there. We got 2 disembodied whistles from a bar that's underground. Like there's no in there. We were in there. I scanned everything, come walking out, and literally was like a whistle to have you come back in, trying to get your attention. I walked back in, double checked it, came back out, had it happen again, and we got it on. It's on video. So that one, that disembodied voices are more creepy than to me than EVPs because you actually hear it. The other big one that I have that I was so mad at myself because I fell for it. I was at Chum has on our Chumming with the Spirits TikTok. There's a short. It's also on our YouTube channel. There's a short, and he was doing an update while he's editing, talking about what's getting ready to come up. And he looks up down his hallway and goes, somebody there, and he takes a second and flips his phone around, and his door closes on him. And he's like, oh, holy cow. And a lot of people thought it was fake. It's not that. I'd been in the room. There's no way. The door is actually like 6 foot from where his desk was. It looks a lot closer when you're filming. But so he caught that on film, and I'm over. I was probably a month or so later. I come over to help with some editing and getting the web page set up and getting all the fun stuff of podcasting on social media platforms. We're getting all that worked out, and he keeps on seeing something down the hallway. So I put my phone out, and I got those TikTok wireless mics that last about 3 hours.
Yeah.
I put one by my phone, and I put one of the mics all the way down, and it's not all the way down. It's his apartment's pretty short. It's a straight one hallway where you have a living room, kitchen, bathroom door, and then his bedroom. It's all in the straight line. I put a mic out in the living room to see if I can catch any noise. So we're sitting there, and it may be 30 minutes, not even an hour goes by. I get up, I use the bathroom, and this is one of those, where you wish you could rewind, because it's I look back and go, I was so stupid on this one. So I use the bathroom, wash my hands. For whatever reason, I leave the door open with the light on, so it's casting. So when I walk out, I can see I'm 6 foot. So my door, when I walk out, I cast a shadow on the wall from the bathroom at 6 foot height. I turn to go look at Larry Parachum, and my mic's flashing green and red. I'm like, well, that's odd, because those are charged. So I walked into the living room, saw that mic. It's also flashing red and green, meaning it needs to be charged. I now realize that's a battery drain. I knew it was a battery drain. I just was, for whatever reason, was not thinking. I was being a paranormal idiot. I grabbed the mic, come walking back over. I grabbed my phone and the other mic. Why I grabbed my phone, I don't know. Maybe I was thinking I was going to need to charge it. I don't know why. So I sit down. I am plugging the mics in to charge. I have my phone in my lap, and I am looking at Larry. Larry's looking at the computer and down the hallway, and there comes a shadow on the wall, like somebody just walked out of the bathroom, about 5'7". I haven't turned yet. It leans like it's trying to look into the bedroom where we're at. I turn my head, and the minute I turn to make eye contact with whatever the shadow was making, the shadow runs straight down the hallway. I mean, fast. Boom, it's gone. Parachum's like, you saw that, right? I'm like, yes. I didn't get it on film. I'm like, son of a, I should have left my phone up recording. Why I grabbed it, why I didn't put 2 and 2, because we had the phone up because we were thinking something. He thought something was going on, and we missed this huge piece of evidence because I just became dumber than a box of rocks when it comes to paranormal investigations. And it wasn't a shadow person, because it literally was a shadow on the wall. Like, I went up and recreated the shadow. There's no way for cars to come in and block it. The fact that it was shorter than me, about 5'7". And the other thing we realized, we should have seen somebody to get that shadow on the wall. when you step out of the bathroom, Parachum should have seen somebody walk out of the bathroom to block the light, because you have to be partway into the hallway to cast that shadow. But it leaned like it was trying to look in. We should have seen something, but we didn't. All we just saw was a shadow. And like I said, the minute I turned to look down the hallway at the shadow, it bolted. Usain Bolt style. And gone. I ended up getting up, checking, because he's like, hey, did you lock the front door? I'm like, yeah, I locked the front door. I got up, checked everything. The only thing I could tell you was the air felt different, but that could have been, my nerves heightened because I just saw something that I couldn't explain. But that was one that was like, that would have been really amazing had I just not been an idiot and left my phone recording and charged my mics. But live and learn, right?
Well, that goes back to you also talking earlier about you think that, Larry has an attachment. But I do want to just let you know, I will. So right off the bat, as investigators and stuff, the one place that we never expect to have to investigate is our own houses of
Absolutely.
where we live.
I never investigate my own house.
Nope.
I always investigate my friends' houses.
Yeah, and I've never, I've never once had the, because to me it's like that, it's a safe space, and so it should never, like, I'd never think to do any of that at all. But from what you're describing right there, I was with somebody, a couple years ago, and she had an attachment, and it's not a good one at all. To where she'd come over. It was a Saturday night, and it was at my old apartment stuff, and we were watching movies with the kids and having a good time. Kids went to bed, and she was leaving. She get ready to leave. We got to my room. She was getting some clothes that she had left there from before when the kids weren't there, and she was gonna take them home or do something with them. And we had my bedroom door closed with the light on, so that way we could talk without trying to, because my kids are like right across the hallway.
Yeah.
Right. And for some reason, I knew that my little boy was on the other side of that door. You know what I mean? Just like you're a parent,
Yeah.
you know when you know. And I was like, oh man, he's probably freaking out. You know what I mean? So, I opened the door, fully expected to see my little boy there. And the only light on in the apartment was my lamp in the living room and the light over the stove. So it was pretty dim. And the whole apartment was dark. Lights were on, but it was just dark. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And she was like, that's not Ben, that thing is here. And I was like, oh, the hell it is. It needs to get the hell out of my house. You know what I mean? Because again, I am that guy who's going to step up and tell things where they can go and how they can get. I'm the first one dead in every horror movie.
Yeah.
So, seriously, I'm seriously there going, all right, you're not welcome here. Whatever is here, you need to leave, blah, 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 blah. And about 5 minutes later, she left. And within minutes of her leaving, it's like my whole, I had the TV on. I'm sitting in my recliner looking around, and I went, okay, my apartment's back to normal again. All right, we're good. When we moved into this house together before we split up, it just always seemed dark. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was like the weekend that she and all of her stuff was gone. It was like, yeah.
Like all the blinds were open?
Yeah, it was like the sun was shining and everything was in. It was like welcoming. And I was like, because I would be here, by myself and stuff. And it'd feel like that there was somebody watching me. And there never was, but it always felt like it,
Yeah.
And so, and when she left, I was like, oh, this is great. And I had a friend of mine, she came in and she cleansed the house and everything for make sure that there was no lingering attachment from her and all that. And I'm like, yay. So.
Yeah, no, I think there's something too, because you're talking about, we've seen more activity since we've started our podcast in locations at, OG's basement, Larry's apartment. We don't film at my place. So it sucks to be those guys. But I truly think the more you talk about it, it'd be like if somebody was saying your name, eventually it'll catch your attention. And the minute they realize, oh, they noticed that, then it can kind of ramp up. Because like that, we were talking before the podcast started about the moon landing episode. That whole, so on our podcast, we generally film about every other weekend, and we do 3 or 4, sometimes more or less, depending on how much we've been chumming, recording that's usable. That one with Matt, it we had a millimeter battery drain. I had a K2 going off the charts, left and right. And when we talked, because we also did a Nikola Tesla video, we started talking about Tesla. The K2 meter went off, which was kind of funny. You know, we're talking about Nikola Tesla, who did AC, who generally, you know, the magnetic, all his electrical stuff, and now we have a K2 that's electromagnetic field picking up stuff. And we can, like, we generally have K2 meters sitting out down there because we've had some activity. That one went with him in there, went all over the charts. I'm like, it was pretty interesting. There's some B-roll footage on my side channel on TikTok that I threw up, and I think Larry threw some other stuff. But it's when we're talking about stuff, we are seeing more activity, you know, in a non-haunted location. So I wonder if we're not, as you talk about it, you don't become like a beacon or something. Or it's just Bear Chum is just on fire, and they just see him as a beacon, and they just want to come in and do whatever. Like I said, none of it ever feels like malice or anything. So whatever his attachment is, that's probably a family member just checking in on him. You know, he's a good dude, and you know.
No, Larry's a great guy. I thoroughly enjoyed visiting with him when you were here, and you know, like I have my theories on attachments. I have my theories on shadow people.
Yeah.
It's just theories as well. But
Yeah.
you know, and I do think that you're right. Though the more that that we do this, the more I can't say we necessarily turn on a light in the darkness. You know, hey, look, we're over here. I think it's the fact that the more we become more aware.
Yeah.
You know, like a lot of people. So people who have a Sasquatch encounter, it messes with them. It really does. You know, a haunted house and stuff like that, unless it's like a full blown entities and a poltergeist activity, most of the time, like footsteps and stuff, they're going to write it off. You know, you and I both know that one.
Yeah.
So,
I left that door open.
yeah, I left that door open.
You know,
Or, it's the house. It's an older house. It's just creaking. You know.
the wind shut that.
Yep, exactly. I mean, we're going to come up with everything that we can. And even I do that to this day. But when you're out in the woods and you encounter a creature or a thing that everybody tells you doesn't exist, you know what I mean? It's a joke, you know what I mean? It's a funny commercial. You know you see what I'm saying? It's it's like they're dumb, they're retarded. There's nothing out there. Come on now.
Yeah, it was a black bear. What are you talking about?
Exactly. So, but when they see this, it leaves an impression on them, and a lot of people have a hard time with that. You know, they struggle with it. They will have PTSD. You know, I interviewed this great guy, and he actually, you know, on his encounter, you know, in the berry patch, he touches it, and it took him forever to go back to the woods again because of that fear.
Yeah. Well, I mean, same with paranormal. Like, it's one thing if you kind of see something. When somebody gets touched or scratched, it's trauma. It's traumatic because everything that you thought was normal is now opened way up, and some people can handle it. Other people just shut it down and go, nope, that didn't happen. Whatever. I do have a question though. You know what the Oz effect is, right? That when you're say you're in a forest and everything just goes silent.
Yep.
Did that happen with you when you're having
my Fort Hood encounter? Yeah.
Yeah, because that's the only time I've experienced that was in the total eclipse. I happened to luck out. I was in the 100% totality of the lunar eclipse. Was it last year?
Last year, yeah, I was in the same thing down here. Yep.
Yeah, because all the animals around, because I'm out in the middle of the field in this. I was working at a plant that's literally located in a whole bunch of fields. It's out in the middle of nowhere in Ohio. I'm out there filming, and all the animals just got really loud right before, and the minute they hit the apex and everything blocked out, everything dimmed, everything went stone cold quiet. And I'm like, oh, that is eerie. And I remember somebody was another engineer was like, "Oh, that's almost like peaceful." And I'm like, "Are you nuts?" That's, like, well, that's not peaceful. That means something around here is messing with everybody else. But I was just, 'cause generally that happens when an apex predator or something, nature realizes, oh, I don't want to draw attention to myself, and everything just goes quiet. And people don't realize that when they're walking out in the woods, like they'll make comments of it. Like you said, they just write it off. Oh, yeah, it just went really quiet, and it was just so peaceful and tranquil. And like you probably had a mountain lion getting ready to pounce on you, and you had no clue because you had no idea what that is. That Oz effect. It's not just. I mean, because Bigfoot generally, most cryptids will cause that, but so will
Well,
bear.
well,
So
my
will
theory on Bigfoot doing it is this, in all honesty, is I don't think that Bigfoot necessarily is going to create a lot of that. I think that, Bigfoot, is a creature that lives out there. So the insects know it. I mean, you and me can walk through the woods and there's going to be crickets and everything chirping. There
yeah.
really is. But when all of a sudden the crickets stop, I mean, that's, because a cricket doesn't give a crap about Bigfoot. Seriously, a cricket doesn't care about you or me to walk through the woods. It's not. It's going to get out of our way. It's still going to be
It's a
chirping. The insects are still going to be
frequencies
buzzing.
and yep.
Yes. But whenever it gets quiet like that, that's when, and I don't think this is the infrasound aspect of the Sasquatch on the insects at all. I don't necessarily, this is where when it comes to, Sasquatch, like my encounter down there at Fort Hood, to this day, I couldn't tell you what it was. Because I didn't see it. I heard it.
Yeah.
It threw things at me. And when you're talking about the fight or flight there earlier, I'm a fully trained professional soldier. I mean, I'm a non-commissioned officer in the United States effing Army.
Yeah.
I am Captain Badass. So, I'm Sergeant Badass. And my two guards are crying to leave. And I'm right there with them. And it was everything to not leave the site. And it's, like I said, it leaves an impressions on you. And yeah, to this day, I mean, yeah, whenever, I'll come on y'all show and I'll talk about it. We'll dig into it. But, when I do, I mean, the goosebumps are still there. And then when I do talk about it too, though, break your equipment out when we do the episode, because when I did my interview with Justin and Jay, we had to redo it because the sound quality was screwed up. Wrote it off to the connection at the hospital and everything that Justin was at the time before the twins were born. When I went on Codex of Curiosities with Rye, great guy.
Yeah.
He was on my show. We interviewed an episode with me, and then about 10 minutes later, we took a bathroom break. 20 minutes later, we recorded for an episode for him. And the next day he mentions me and he goes, "The audio's all screwed up. I can't use it. Can we do it again?" And I'm like, "Really?" And then with Brandon, from Tinfoil Tales, with him on the video, we don't, he likes to do video. He likes to watch people. He does audio. But if the video was there, you would see shadows crossing my face. The audio came out good, he said, but you'll see, shadows as I'm talking about this thing. So I don't know whether it was Sasquatch that I encountered down there. I don't think it was. But, I mean, there's a cold spot. There was a thunk sound.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's so much weird stuff that took place.
Yeah.
And it wrapped up all night long. Then there's missing time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I think I have a bigger belief that, that we try to put all this stuff in one big box for Sasquatch, and there's sports spirits, however you want to call them. I think there's a paranormal aspect, and then there's a physical, actual creature, and we sometimes forget that two things can happen at once. And like Native American beliefs and stuff, like they believed in forced guardians and other things out there that I think we actually talked about this. It got brought up that, like, on the Bell Witch, like if that happened, like everything that happened was multiple people witnessed and heard the noises and the chanting and all the stuff that was happening. But they didn't. I mean, they said they wouldn't go back in the house, but they didn't like move away. And I think it's because we've downplayed all those folklores and storytelling and all that they used to do, because Bigfoot's a big joke. It's finally gathering some credibility in the last 10 to 15 years. Same with ghost investigations and paranormal research and stuff like that. But it was such a big laughing stock if you brought that up, that you'd be shunned. But 150 years ago, they would have been, giving you iron nails and horseshoes and telling you, hey, this is, just don't worry about it, but this is what you want to put up over your door, your threshold. This is how you shut your windows at night. Don't let anything look. We have become so disassociated with it that I think we don't know how to handle it. So, and that's probably also why we have such a trauma when it does happen, is because that's not part of our history anymore, right? And I mean, well, if you grew up in the Appalachians, they still have that. I mean, they take something pretty seriously. Other people are like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. Now there's that fine line in between. That's just my opinion.
No, I agree. Well, I'm with you on that one. I do think, one, I love technology. I mean, I'm not one to bash technology and stuff like that. I do think advances in technology is important, but I also believe that, the old ways and everything that we've done in the past, there's something to it. I mean, there's Sasquatch stories, there's ghost stories, there's magic stories all throughout history, including in the Bible. I mean,
Yep.
and, the Bible is one of my favorite references to go back to on a lot of topics and issues with the paranormal and with cryptids. I'm not going to jump in and say that I think the Sasquatch is a product of the Nephilim. I don't. But I do think that, there are other entities out there that are. And I do think that in a lot of ways that we have self-manifested these beings into reality as well through the use of the internet, i.e. Slender Man. I use Slender Man, and then there was the walkers out there in California. Remember the two things on two legs? I think that we've manifested some of these beings into reality. The same as using like a Ouija board.
Yeah, it's called the term for it's called a tulpa. It's when you believe in something enough that enough people believe in it, it becomes actual. Things start happening, and there's theories behind that. That like there's entities that feed off of that type of energy, and they'll help manifest that stuff if you talk about it enough, And I mean, theoretically, they've been around for a millennia, so it explain a lot of the stories over the years and that. I mean, there's a bunch of boxes to throw stuff in. We cover such a wide range of things because I think there's a physical flesh and blood creature out there that people are seeing, and there's probably other paranormal stuff that people are believing it's the same thing.
Well, so on the paranormal stuff, and when it comes to Sasquatch, so some of my theories that I have on the paranormal stuff with Sasquatch is this. And you're in the woods, you're walking along, you're hiking, you're camping with your family, you're not thinking Bigfoot any way, shape, or form. And all of a sudden you see one. It's there. So here's something that you're not supposed to see at all. Period. Is I mean, again, according to what mainstream science and mainstream media and everybody tells us that is not supposed to exist. Now there's this creature looking at you and you're looking at it, doesn't exist, and it moves. Well, automatically your brain is going to trigger a whole bunch of weird stuff with everything that goes with that movement because it doesn't exist. So your brain is trying to create solutions for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To make it real. For our brains to comprehend it, because our brains are taking in so much information, through our eyes, constantly, and our brains cataloging everything at once. Color to brick, the lights that are hanging up overhead, the sun setting, the green leaves, everything. I'm pretty much looking at the house, right now. So the brain is taking all of it in and trying to process it in a way for us to understand it. And when something weird happens, if you ever notice, like the first thing of a natural disaster, I'll do a bombing. I hate saying that term. I'll do a bombing. There's always that when it goes off, that moment of freeze, because it's not supposed to happen.
Yeah.
And if you listen, everybody has a different account of those events at that time because that's how their brain's processing it. So in law enforcement, whenever they investigate eyewitnesses, they investigate every single eyewitness. And, my dear friend, who's retiring, he'll tell you too. There's been so many times on so many cases that he's been on to where they'll have multiple. It was wearing blue shoes, red shoes, because that was what their brain was trying to process at the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and that's where you have to get everybody's story. And same thing in the military. When we have to do a back brief on an operation or anything like that, they interview everyone individually, and that's how they get the picture created of what was seen. And of course, but we're trained, and just like you're trained as well, especially in EOD, you're trained. Your brain is trained in different ways, and it takes forever to train that way. So if you notice the difference between a young private and a seasoned NCO. The seasoned NCO is going to walk right into the situation and automatically do it. The private's going to panic because his brain isn't fully trained and is not comprehending what they're seeing. And I think that's where some of the paranormal comes in at when it comes to Sasquatch. Like when I hear glowing eyes, my first thought is, how can they glow? There doesn't do anything biologically for them to glow. It actually ruin their night vision.
Yeah. Oh, and I have my own theory on that too. I'm very similar. I think it's eye shine, but people don't know how to react to that when they're seeing, because unless you're from the 80s and had the Polaroids with the red eyes of all the people that had.
Yes.
I think that your brain's trying to comprehend what you're seeing with the eye shine, because we don't have eye shine, and it's 7 to 8 foot tall. Your brain starts doing cartwheels trying to figure out what, and I think it comes out as well. Horror movie. Oh, those red glowing eyes, unless it's, somebody with an old pair of thermals.
Yeah, well, true. Yeah. Well, and the other thing is too, though, it's like you were talking about, when you were here a couple of weeks ago, we were sitting down here at the tavern hanging out, and I do like the fact that, right off the bat, you guys ask them, well, what TV shows do you watch when you go on an investigation? And I do think a lot of that has a lot to play into it, to where if you're really big into watching all these paranormal shows, it's going to start playing onto you, and you start thinking, well, that happened to us, didn't it? You know what I mean? And then now every sound you hear, it's like the old saying, if you ever want to not feel alone in your house, turn off the lights and watch a scary movie.
Yep.
And that's because, again, that's the brain, handling everything and, creating all these scenarios up. So I do think that there's, a lot to our psyche on that part, to where we don't fully. We've got, like, we're about 150 years ago, we've gotten away from it. Like right now, I'll tell you that my house, I have iron stakes at every corner of my house, buried into the ground at every corner of this house. And when I move, I'm gonna stake. I'm gonna stake that. I'm gonna day one. I mean, I've already got them. Day one is getting staked. And that's for protection. That's old protection.
Old, well, and I love that sort of stuff, because as we get modern and, our technology is getting better and all that, and now we can kind of go back and realize, I always love the fact that people don't realize, like, when using a silver bullet on a werewolf, or silver is this pure metal and vampires can't see the reflection in. They didn't understand back in the day that silver is antimicrobial. It is one of the main ingredients in most water filters. If bacteria touches it, it will kill it. Stainless keeps bacteria from growing. It won't kill it, but it doesn't have anything to feed off of. But how does something that people didn't know what a germ was, pick a metal that actually kills bacteria and germs? And those are the connections that I enjoy as we go back and look at these myths and legends, and you find that nugget of, well, that's kind of interesting. Maybe they did know something. My favorite is the vampire propaganda of garlic. You're not supposed to, vampires don't like garlic. Garlic's an anticoagulant. If you eat enough garlic, it thins your blood down. Well, to me, that's just like a vampire saying, no, don't eat the garlic. Don't make your blood thinner and taste better. That'd be horrible type thing.
So in the research we were talking about before we started recording about the vampires I'm doing, I haven't got into that. I've been going into the origins.
Yeah.
But when you talk about the silver, though, the funny part, so part of that, though, is the reason why vampires back in the day could not see the reflection was because mirrors were made with silver.
Yes.
They were backed by silver and stuff, and silver is considered a pure, like you were saying, they consider it back then a pure metal. And in some areas, it was more valuable than gold because of the properties and everything for it. And how do they know that? Again, this is where maybe there's some old technology and everything that we have lost and forgotten.
Yeah, no, I think it is.
Because our current history that we know of is about 150 years ago. That's it. Everything else is, a book or a photo or something that we have to piece together. And then a lot of our stuff that we do know about the world, about animals and everything and creatures that exist and don't exist, was written by guys who graduated from Oxford and went around the world and told people they were dumb because they were Oxford graduates and they were smarter than everybody. And that's where Darwin comes into place at, where, like my theory on evolution is I have a hard time with evolution in all honesty is because, well, I'll just mention a snake. I'll mention an alligator. And these were creatures that were around during the dinosaur era. Sharks, sharks, they've been this way forever. They're not fully evolving. I do think I do think we can adapt to our environment, if that makes sense, kind of an environmental evolution, but not a full-blown, evolution. I have a hard time seeing us come from a monkey. I really do, especially when we share a lot of similar DNA traits with a banana.
Yeah.
So we're not descending from bananas, per se. And I think that the monkey thing came into place because they're the most similar animal the man on the planet. And so we have to associate that similar to us. But yet I think the dolphin and the killer whales are way more intelligent than monkeys are.
Yeah, supposedly chimpanzees are going in the Stone Age now.
Yeah, well, they should be. They should be like constructing huts and stuff.
Yeah, well, they're working with rocks right now and spears. So you give them another 1,000 years, we'll see how it goes. But it's.
Well, I would tell you. Orcas. Orcas. They teach each other in their pods on how to hunt and where to hunt, and and strategies, and they study and they pass this on. They communicate this effectively.
Well, and they're very curious. Like I knew a guy that. He used to love to go out, and he had I was growing up next to him. He did patents and did a whole bunch of stuff. They had this beautiful sailboat in Kansas. We're in Independence, Kansas, and he has this large keel sailboat in the back of the, outside the building. And I finally asked him about it. He goes, well, yeah, I used to like going out. And he wrote books too. Really interesting guy. He was talking about, I really don't do it too much anymore. He goes, I forgot. It was like out on the coast, off the coast of California. He says it was just a beautiful morning. He got up, grabbed his coffee. He says the ocean was just glass smooth. And he says it was just peaceful but slightly eerie. And he says he was drinking his coffee. And he goes, because it's probably a 35-foot sailboat, so it's not small, but it's not huge for an ocean vessel. But he says he just got this uneasy feeling he was being watched. And he said he turned and looked over his shoulder, and there was an orca out of the water just hovering, staring at him. And when he made eye contact, he said it took about 2 seconds, and it just slipped right back into the water without a sound. He was like, yep, I'm out. I was like, he goes, it could have, because the boat's not that big. He said it was up high enough to make eye contact with them, but it was just hovering in the water without really making hardly any sound, and just went back in the water without, because if it really wanted to, it could have lunged, it's not that wide of a ship. He's like, because that was the most eeriest thing. He goes, but he says the eyes, it was just literally just looking at him and just was taking everything in. He goes, that was so uneery for him that he pretty much stopped taking the boat out in the ocean. He stuck to lakes. I was like, that, because there's animals when you look at them, like go to zoos and look at certain animals. You can tell that there's intelligence there. They're not just, they're stuck where they're at. But there's something more there that I don't think we give enough animals credit for.
Oh no, I agree. But and yeah, I don't think evolution's a real thing. I honestly don't. And as we are the most unique creature on the planet.
I don't know. An octopus is pretty unique.
Yeah, well, obviously, yes. Well, I love octopus. I'm not gonna lie. I think they're amazing. I do, and they've been around for billions of years as well. And
But
there's no evolution to them. And fish, same thing. Now they'll adapt. They can do an environmental adaptation. But if you look at man in itself and the different, and I hate using the term race, I really do, but the differences of man that we have, and it's to me it's just fascinating. I mean, I could ramble on about that topic
oh yeah,
for hours.
yeah.
And
That's
hours.
a whole podcast in itself because theoretically we found fossils of modern man going almost 200,000 years back. I agree with I think there is some things about evolving to your environment and all that, but evolution doesn't explain why our craniums are where we're at, or the way we should not be able to survive in the environments that we have because look at half the animals out there, cows and horses when they're born, a matter of hours they're up and moving around. We're helpless for years.
Yep.
Compared to all the other animals on this planet. Our brain capacity, which helps us, there's theories on that. But yeah, no, there's a bunch of stuff that we'll have to do a part 2, 4, 3, and 4 at some point in time when we get
well, yeah,
get sitting down.
We'll deep down that. Okay, well that's a good spot. I think we'll bring this in for a landing real quick. Yeah, we're going on almost an hour and a half. So, real quick, tell everybody where to find your show at. Tell everybody the name of your show and where to find your show.
Okay. It's called Chumming with the Spirits. You can find us on every podcast platform from Apple, Spotify, Amazon, RSS. Our main channel is YouTube. You can watch us. We generally do all our podcasts with audio and video, but then we'll post the podcasts on the standard podcast channels with audio only. You can find us. We have events coming up. April, which you said this will be posted afterwards. So we have August 8th. August. I think it's August 8th. Paracon KC in Greater KC area. It'll be in Lansing, Kansas. We're going to be in October 4th. A vendor for the Ohio Bigfoot Jamboree 2.
I'll be a speaker there.
Yep, we'll be hanging out with a whole bunch of people. Some people we haven't met before. Shout out to Miss Monsters and Mullets, John Fike.
You beat me to the punch.
Yep, he's the one that let us know about it. Of course, Cryptids of the Corn, Jay and Justin are the people that are putting on the show. We had such a blast watching you guys do your live show. You guys did a phenomenal job. Shout out to Todd Neese, who did a presentation on his encounter and some infrasound and yours. We had a blast coming down, seeing everything. Been just amazing watching you guys and being able to support you guys as much as you guys have supported us. Tommy and Jacob and all your crew. You got multiple investigators I haven't met yet, personally. Seen them on the show. I'm looking forward to coming down and doing some work with you guys on that.
Yeah, you get a chance to meet Chris on your next visit down here.
Yeah.
So Chris had a sick kid that whole entire weekend, and he felt horrible for not coming. He felt horrible for not being able to make it. And but he's excited to meet you guys on your next visit down here. He's like, "What, really?" So he's all excited. And then he met Tony, of course.
Yeah, Tony, yes, phenomenal. Gave us some apps that we looked into. We're definitely gonna have to try.
I will tell you though, that app works.
Yeah, I believed everything he said. Like me and Larry downloaded it right away.
Because when we broke it out at Area 1, and I didn't think anything about any of that stuff. But Tony's brain, that's why I like the little crew that I have around with me. That the friends and everything that I have is because we all think in different patterns, but it works. And I wouldn't be where I'm at today if it wasn't for them. Shout out to you guys, love you. But so when Tony broke it out, I was like, "What am I looking at?" And he goes, "There should be no sounds right here. There should be nothing here." But look, it was all over the charts. Well, you saw the screenshots of it.
Yep.
So in the middle of the woods, away from civilization, there should be no
Yeah, you shouldn't be
sounds.
picking up any of that.
It shouldn't be picking anything up at all
And
except for
that
us.
frequency range, yeah.
Yep. So, and that's where, I could have gotten zapped out or my encounter, yeah, whatever that was.
Which, I'm looking forward to reviewing more of that stuff. Like, by the time this post, I should hopefully be back and not become a 411 victim. I am doing Ape Canyon near Mount St. Helen, Washington. It's a 10-mile round trip hike out to the canyon, try to get as much video footage as I can. That's where the incident in 1924 where people were actually attacked in a cabin. Back then they called them mountain devils. Before it was all before Bigfoot was a name at that point in time. That should be pretty interesting. It's breathtaking scenery up in that area. All that, if you ever get a chance to go to that area of the United States, Oregon and Washington, in that area, the waterfalls, the dense forest. I now realize why people disappear, because you're only 2 steps and you're dropping 100 foot depending on where you're at.
No, yeah, and I'm excited for you to go. I am super excited for you to go. I want to hear all about it. I want pictures. I want to see it.
I'll be doing video. I don't think I'll be able to do live video, but if I do become missing, hopefully somebody finds my phone and we'll be able to upload all the video of me running.
Well,
to.
Well, again, my advice would be, before you do go, I know you're leaving soon, but try and get up there in Northwest Arkansas. I know we're supposed to end the show, but up there in Northwest Arkansas, when we were going out, Todd has a GPS tracker that he carries with him. And so whether you have signal or not, it's going to pick up wherever you're at.
Yeah, I have Apple products. My watch is tied to cell, which will go to satellite.
Okay.
So,
well, hopefully it stays that way. So that way, you'd be tracked and stuff. Because I know that when, because we postponed the Portlock expedition this year, we're aiming for next year now. And, I'm investing in one while I'm there, because there is no cell service up there. In Portlock at all. So this way, if something does happen, when they can't get the land, they can be able to, pull it up and see what's going on. And of course, my loved ones here will be able to track as well, see where I'm at. They can open it up and go, oh, look, he's moving over here. Or he's on this spot, So I think that's kind of cool to use. This is where I want to use technology to help us kind of track things down. But
I didn't think about it. I can turn that on my Strava. So when I go do the trail, I think there's a way for it to go satellite and track. So I do Apple, but I got the cell service because I used to do triathlons, thinking I might try to get back into that at some point. We'll see. But I got my Apple Watch because it detects if you have a fall, high G-force, whatever, and then it'll alert. But now they have the satellite capabilities on that, so we'll see. Like I said, I hope nothing happens. They do have a few black bear. No brown bears are known to be in that area anymore. Bobcats, mountain lions.
I'd be more worried about the mountain lions and the moose.
Moose, yeah. Well, even elk. People don't realize elk are not necessarily a small animal.
No, they're not. But moose will be more happy to charge you. People don't realize that. They don't realize how big a moose really is until they get up close when they see one. And then they're like, "Holy, that's huge!" Like, yeah, I know they're big and they're mean.
Yeah. Well, when you're that big, you don't like to be messed with. You're just going to step on whatever you don't like.
Exactly. Well, JD, man, thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to more adventures with the Chumming the Spirits crew and the Drunkencryptids crew. We may have to create our own little, try and tie in the name together kind of thing. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited. I'm going to have Larry on here in a couple of days, and you're going to visit with him. So. And then I'm working on getting OG on the show as well. And then we're going to plan one for all of us to be together, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so we'll air it on your show, we'll air it on my show,
yep.
Yeah. And it'll be at the new tavern.
Yeah, that's the plan.
And
we might as well just call it Chumming with the Cryptids.
Yeah, might as well. Or Chumming for the Cryptids.
Chumming for the Cryptids, yeah.
Work.
I'm looking forward to it. Thank you, and keep up the great work. You've been doing it for a year, about the same length that we have. Podcast's amazing. Your guests, your speaking, and then let us know whatever we can do to help out. We look forward to collaborations and the group of people that has introduced us to you and Justin, Jay, John, Nevermore Hollows. All I mean, there's
Yeah, wait till
the
you. Yeah,
artist.
the guys at Nevermore Halls are great. I
Yes.
mean, wonderful guys. Uh, Chris and Alan, who does the writing and the narrating for the show, and Chris does a lot of the voice work for it, and it's a really neat show. And and it, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I do a lot of digging and researching and everything, and all that stuff. So for me, Nevermore Hollows is like that. I get a story now. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to
Yep.
pay attention, and I'm not. I can, but in the way that Alan's written it so far, and the direction it's going, it's really neat to be able to pick up and tie the characters. What happened on this episode. You know, episodes later, it's going to pop back up again or something similar to it, and you're going, oh, wait a minute. Because my dumbass, I listen to it backwards, and I tell everybody, if
Yeah.
you're going to listen to it, start from the first one and go through. And of course, in the town of Nevermore Hollows that Alan's writing about is the Drunkencryptids Tavern.
That's awesome.
So you got to check that episode out.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then I almost forgot. I have to mention a friend of ours is the Darkwoods Paranormal. They're a podcast group. They do investigations. They do very similar to No More Hollows on sci-fi storytelling. They are going to be co-hosting us doing an investigation at the famous Sally House in Atchison, Kansas, at the end of May. So that should be outstanding fun time. I'm looking that as a bucket list for me. If you haven't ever heard of the Sally House, definitely look it up. It goes back to 1993 with the TV show called Sightings. First video evidence of marks being made on somebody on TV. That's really also what kicked me into. That was right after I graduated high school and saw that, and I was like, that relates to everything I've seen growing up. But so I'm going to be busy for a few months. You're going to be busy for a few months, but after that, we're going to get together. I will be more happy to hold a camera for you while you're doing your investigations. Let us know if we can help you out on technology, manpower, whatever. We're here for you, man.
Man, you guys are too
Appreciate those.
kind. You guys really are too kind. I mean, and when you're doing this stuff, and one of the perks and bonuses of it all is getting a chance to meet people like you guys, and and John and Justin and Jay, and be able to put our egos aside and be open to new ideas and new possibilities and new theories. And it's going to be shows like y'all and Justin and Cribs of Corn, hopefully my show, and all the others out there as well. That's going to help start bringing some light into some of these crazy, weird paranormal cryptid topics, because it's out there. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I'm not making a single dime, and because my encounters drove me nuts. There's something out there, and it's not human.
Yeah. No, I mean, we're the same way. We're, fledgling podcast that just came up a year ago. Hopefully in 5 years, we'll make, we'll be somewhere where the Cryptid of the Corns are at. Maybe have one of us, if not part of us, having enough revenue to do stuff. But the goal for us was, and I'll be honest, like this year just sparked it. We did a amazing Paracon on Missouri Paracon, met a whole bunch of people. Darkwoods Paranormal Podcast is some of those people, and then we talked with Tommy on TikTok. We'd met John through TikTok. Tommy led us into you, and then and then you led us into Cryptids of the Corn. Same with John. The surrounding yourself with such amazing group of people that all are so unique, yet we share some commonalities that I don't 10 years ago, it used to be very competitive. Like people would like, oh, no, this is mine. This is, you're too close to me. And I'm like, I'm at the point that I realize that all I'm doing is learning from you guys and vice versa. If I can help you out or, you'll return the
we're here for
favor.
y'all. You know that.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Absolutely. And that's, everybody, like Justin and Jay gave us such great advice and some, hey, this is what we figured out. Maybe it'll work for you, maybe not. We're looking forward to seeing them in October. Tommy has done some audio editing for us to look at some weird stuff that's happened during some of our lives.
And I love
You
Tommy.
guys, yeah, I love Tommy and Nicole, and you guys, being welcoming for us to come down and be able to support you guys on your live. I would have never thought about that. I thought, other than I truly believe that if there not been a tornado, you know, that would have been even more people seeing how amazing you guys, your presentation, what you talked about, just really was just a great night. And then the after hours at the tavern to hang out and just because I don't think I told you, Larry had drove and hadn't slept. Like he was really tired, and I
Oh
like no.
no.
I'm like, no, dude, you have to understand. You're going to this. You're going to enjoy it. Like I drug him over there, and like I got pictures of him and Justin. Like they were just vibing, and like
It was great.
I
Wasn't that
didn't
awesome
mean,
watching that happen?
yeah, I think you mentioned it was like you're sitting in your tavern, and there's like 5 different conversations going on that are just friggin' phenomenal. The amount of information that people are talking about, and just Todd and Tony and you and me and Justin and Jay and Larry. It was that those are the moments from a personal aspect when you realize that you're surrounded with that many brilliant people and we're all there just talking and coming up with ideas to make everything better. That was such a neat event. And that's what I'm looking forward to as we do more and more collaborations. Wherever we can help out, just let us know.
It's going to happen. I'll tell you that right now. It's
Oh,
going to happen. Justin's
absolutely.
hooking me up also. There was, I can't remember his name, and I'm horrible at that. But they came in from Oklahoma, and he does camera work for Merkel. And
Oh,
he
okay.
and he asked Jay, he's like, who should I talk to? And Jay goes, Matthew. Go talk to Matthew. Go talk to Matthew. Matthew's got great ideas. Go talk to him. So we're trying to link up, and I'm trying to get his information and everything as well. And I'm just hoping I can afford him one one
Yeah,
day.
no, that's a fine line. Well, I mean, almost everybody. I mean, like nobody. I mean, like we're here to. We don't want to go broke doing it, but I mean, we try to make everything what we can to help out where we can, and we go from there. But I mean, you have to admit the amount of people. I don't know if you've noticed it. The amount of people I have met in pretty much 6 months has blown my mind on the talent, the ideas, the theories, and then like theory upon theory. Like when we get into situations and talking, and then you're trying to wrap it up, and here we go for another 30 minutes. That type of thing.
But
It's
that's the thing too,
amazing.
though. Is that and you're right, and that's one of the things I love about this. And the audience is still listening right now. Hopefully they're picking up on this. That one, you're not alone. If you've had an encounter, you're definitely not alone. There's a bunch of us out here, and there is a good support community for that. And all we're trying to do, every one of us that is doing these shows has had some sort of encounter or another. I grew up in haunted houses. I've been touched quite a few times. I've seen one full body. I've seen shadow people. The Fort Hood encounter. The AHA event.
Hmm.
Doing investigations out here. The episode hasn't aired yet on Search for Sasquatch, where something happens. So in some aspects, I am your Larry, where they always seem to like zoom in on me, which is comical. So maybe me and Larry should go and hang out in a morgue somewhere.
Well, be careful what you ask for.
Oh, I
We
know.
got some places.
I know. Larry'd be more than happy. Like, let's go. Like, all right. Again, I'm the first one going. All right, so it's haunted. Huh? Let's go check this place out. And it's so. But for those still listening, this is the cool part about the community, and even part of the audience. And people I've interviewed before, and I get real bad about not being able to text back, but I do get busy, you guys. I apologize because an episode goes, and then it's like the next one, and I'm playing the next ones out there. So I will text you back, I promise. Sometimes it might take me a couple of weeks, but I will text you back. So don't stop
And
texting me.
anybody listening that has a story, if you can't wait for Matt to get back to you, hop on TikTok, look for was it Myths, Monsters, and Mullets. John does a live every Sunday
And Monday.
at 7. Yeah, so he's taking people. We do a live every Thursday on TikTok. So if you can't get a hold of Matt, look for us on TikTok we're following Matt Drunken Cryptids on TikTok. We can get you in touch with him because you definitely, if you have a story, tell one of us, tell us all. We will get you to the right people. Because that's really what we're all here for. That's why we're talking to each other. We're here to help share the wealth of knowledge and make people understand it's okay. What you saw, maybe it was a bear, but something about it was off. Tell us about it. Maybe you heard footsteps, but you're not sure. Maybe you saw something in the sky and lost 30 minutes and you don't know why. We have people that you can talk to that will be more than happy to listen to your stories. And then if you're okay with it, we'll even put it on a podcast. Or if you don't, we're just here to listen. You do such a great job of that. John does, Justin, Jay, everybody. I am always amazed at how great you guys are on how you do your interviews, how you listen to people, how you put this information out, to doing the best to make sure somebody feels good and comfortable about their story. So thank you for doing that. I greatly appreciate that, Matt.
Oh, thank you. I just thank you. I want to make sure that, like I was saying before, when you know this, when you've had an encounter with something, you question your sanity. Did it really happen? I know I saw something. What was it? What happened? And the only way we're going to get to the bottom of this is to actually do what we're doing now.
Yep. Absolutely.
Just keep talking. All right. Well, I'm going to land it in here, JD. Thank you very much for the kind words. You guys do a great job over there. I love listening to it because it's funny. Okay, we're going to take a break for a minute, guys. Oh, and then he goes, hey, we're back. We got, okay, this is what I'm drinking. Stop the fireball. I can't do the fireball. So when I show up, I can't. Fireball. Todd,
we have a keg of Fireball now.
No, I'm not a Fireball fan at all.
I got nicer stuff for you. You don't have to do the Fireball.
Well, I'm bringing stuff up when I come up there, I promise. Because you're taking me on an investigation, right?
Oh, absolutely. If you can bring your whole crew up, if they can break away.
Probably just going to be me. And they're listening. They know it's probably just going to be me.
It happens. People have lives. But yes, absolutely. We will do a paranormal investigation. We're actually lining up a cryptid investigation. If we get some good evidence from that, from like a 30 minutes from here, got some hand cast footprints. We'll be doing a podcast on that soon. If everything goes well, we'll actually be feeding them over to you. He's an author. He's been on a couple. Carter Bashir. He's a local KC guy that we just met at the Kansas City Paracon, the Missouri Paracon. But
okay.
Yeah, no, we're hooking you up as much as we can.
I appreciate that. I said, because I got an investigation coming up in a couple of weeks. I'm doing. It's pretty hot. It's about an hour away from here. It's going to be an overnight one. So, and as long as of course, with everything going on my schedule right now, that can change. So I'm trying to catch it earlier in the season before it gets too hot for me out there.
Yep.
So
that's where I'm at. I don't want to do cryptid hunting at 110 degrees with 100% humidity at night.
No, I'd rather go ghost hunting inside of a haunted location with the air conditioner on.
With air conditioning, yes. So, but we also, Larry Parachum, he's big into sky watching. So, I mean, we'll give you a smorgasbord of options from paranormal to UFO to cryptid. You just got to take your pick and figure out when you want to come up to do it.
I'm down. As soon as we get the relocation, everything transferred over, we're going to get on the calendar and get it planned out. So, all right, brother. Well, thank you for coming on the show, man. I appreciate it. The kind words, everything. And everybody out there listening, don't forget, if you've had an encounter, you want to talk about it, email me, drunkencryptids@gmail.com. If you want video footage of us to look at, email it to us. Get a hold of us. Tommy's more than happy to jump in and look at it. We'll review it. And even if you don't want to come on the show, email us your encounter. We'll talk about it on the show. So whatever makes you feel comfortable, we have no problem doing that. So until next time, y'all stay safe out there.
I can do anything that I want. I can do anything that I want now. can be anything